Sister to the noise, yeah, the mess we make. Machine Blunt Kelly get caught in the fake. Facts and logic with a twist of chest. Strip it down to truth, yeah, forget the rest. Humor blows the lights right out of the park. Look beyond the shadows that set the dark. Sparks of laughter fire up the night, bringing clarity where they blur the fight. Cut through the chaos, yeah, the tangled lies. Steampunk Kelly with a set of clear eyes. Truths and jokes gonna rock this show. Step into light where the real facts flow.
Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of The Punch Show. You ready to step into the light where the real facts grow? You know, as AI songs go, that could be a lot worse. Anyway, this is, hang on, I'm trying to fix something on my monitor and it's being, okay, there we go. All right. So this is actually a pretty special episode of The Punch Show for me. As some of you may know, if you, before I get going, if you can watch on YouTube, it's better for me if you watch on YouTube, and you'll understand that in a minute. I have been, dealing with long COVID for about 8 months now and unable to work. And so, in order to try to get some income, I've decided that I was going to try and get a monetized YouTube channel. And I was about 95% of the way there yesterday when I posted about it. And then you guys were amazing. I just cannot believe what happened. I was hoping, maybe I would be 3 or 4 weeks away. I had nearly 150 watch hours just yesterday, and it looks like probably today I'm gonna be over the hurdle. You need what it is you need 4,000 watch hours before you get into AdSense, and then start being able to collect that revenue. And I was really close, and now it's like there's this kind of area where you go over 4,000, like where you have unofficial hours and you have official hours, and unofficially I'm over, but officially it's still taking a few more hours and maybe another day or two, because it lags behind in time, as well as like not all your watch hours count for some reason. I guess if people watch things more than once, it only counts once. Anyway, the point is, it looks like I will definitely be monetized by the end of the week. And just like literally thousands of you kind of just came to bat for me, even though you don't really know me except on Twitter. And like I got so many encouraging comments on my YouTube videos, and so many encouraging replies in my posts. And it made my heart feel good. We talk a lot about how Twitter is bad, and it's like, or not Twitter, like social media is bad, and toxic and all of that. And all of that can be true. But it can also be true that social media has its virtues too. Maybe we need an episode of White Mirror, which is kind of the opposite, to where people get helped by social media, because I know that it happens. I know that like there's crowdfunding that is made possible. Like one time I remember this is one of my favorite stories about this, is Patton Oswalt had some troll that was attacking him, and you've got to love this story, right? This MAGA right-wing troll was insulting Patton Oswalt, and then Patton Oswalt looked on his profile and saw that he had a GoFundMe for some kind of cancer or something, I think it was. And so he went to the guy's GoFundMe, he read it, he donated like $5,000 or something, and then he tweeted it. And the guy needed like $50,000 to pay for his surgery. And it was all taken care of in like 10 minutes. And then people kept giving him money. And, you know, there is an anti-toxic side to social media. There is, you know, it's just another one of those things that, you know, it's not good or bad. It's how you use it. And, y'all pretty much saved me. I was pretty stressed out. It's hard to, you know, it's hard enough already when you have long COVID, and then when you try to work and you can't work, and then stress makes it worse, and just getting monetized takes a huge stress off me. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not like rolling in extra money or anything. I don't know how much money I'll be making, but you know, at least it's something, right? And I just really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. You know, if any of you are the, you know, I just genuinely, my heart goes out to you. My gratitude goes out to you. Just love you guys. Thank you. Sorry. Didn't mean to get this emotional about it, but I don't want to say you saved my life, but you came pretty damn close to it. So anyway, onward with the show. Thank you again for all your help. Let's go and start looking at some of the batshit crazy stuff that's going on. All right, so let's start off with
Gitmo's still open.
El Salvador.
Are there any illegal immigrants who have been taken to Guantanamo Bay today, or has that prison been closed?
This guy, like, I'm old enough, like I was mentioning yesterday, I'm old enough when we just kind of flush turds instead of interviewing them.
No, it's wide open. Gitmo is open. There are a number of foreign terrorist aliens that are being housed at Gitmo, awaiting
foreign terrorist aliens based on what? Like they're labeling anybody that's brown as a gang member, and then they're saying gang members are terrorists. Don't be confused. There is absolutely no adjudication process to them being determined to be terrorists or gang members. All it is just the Department of Justice says so, or ICE says so, or Stephen Miller says so. There's no point where you have to prove that that's what they are. And that's what people are upset about. Because what's going to stop anybody else? But anyway, poop emoji here has things to say.
Final removal to another destination. But what I want to be very clear on,
Can you tell me how
Bill,
many?
No, I cannot. That's operationally sensitive information.
Operationally sensitive information. Why? How is it going to affect the operation? Like, you guys are okay with sitting there discussing war plans on Signal, but telling us how many people you're illegally detaining in Gitmo is like national security?
Or more?
It's a large number. The exact number is off.
It's a large number, over 10 then, because they only have that many fingers, and that's as high as they can count.
Operationally sensitive, to do with military and other considerations relating to the security of those who are there and the security of those who are operating the facility. But I want to be very, very clear about this, Bill. We've been living through a hoax.
This right here. This is why I put this clip in here. This is some of the most deranged, lunatic, maniacal, right-wing, fascist, Nazi bullshit you will ever hear in your life.
Nobody was mistakenly sent to El Salvador. He was ordered
But,
deported from
somebody
this
was
country in
mistakenly
2019.
sent to El Salvador. And if you didn't mistakenly do it, then you deliberately violated a court order. So, doesn't make it any better.
He's an illegal alien. His home nation is El Salvador.
He was here legally. He was not here illegally. He was here legally. They literally had a court order saying you cannot deport him. They tried to deport him, and the court said, no, if you deport him, he's going to get killed by the gang that you're accusing him of being a member of.
That is where he belongs.
No, it's not where he belongs.
Is Gitmo still open?
Anyway, is there a more odious human being on the planet other than Stephen Miller? I used to think there was no competition for Ted Cruz, but Stephen Miller has just lapped him. You barely even hear from Ted Cruz anymore. All right, so we're going to go to the next one. I forgot to label what this one's about. We'll see what happens.
This meeting between the El Salvadorian president and President Donald Trump, does that indicate that the flights will continue, that the deportation, that you guys aren't going to allow the courts to stop you?
Well, I think the conversation is going to be extremely beneficial. El Salvador's been a fantastic partner.
Can we just, for a second, process what he just asked with that question? Does this mean you're not going to allow the courts to stop you? Like when they get really, really upset if you accuse them of being fascist. But they're sitting there and they're talking about, will you let the courts stop you? Like they're literally saying that the courts can't stop them. That's the suggestion, right? That the rule of law does not exist, that there's no adjudication for things, that it is 100% up to the executive branch to just deport anybody they want. We're not going to let the court stop us. Okay, what if your ass ended up in El Salvador? Would you be asking the same question? I'm pointing to the guy asking the question here. Like, what is that? Where are we at as a society? I'm old enough to remember when we thought that, like, illegally deporting people to other countries to prisons that we're paying for the prison was, like, bad. None of these people have been tried with anything. None of these people have been convicted of anything. We talk about Garcia, but none of them have actually been adjudicated by anything other than just they were here illegally. And some of them weren't. And we don't even know who was and wasn't because there was no process. There was no due process. There was no court hearing. There was nothing. It was just grab people off the street, throw them in a van, put a bag over their head, and then they take it off when they get to an El Salvadorian prison, shave their head, strip them down to their underwear, and take a photo op with psycho dog murderer here.
And when I was in El Salvador visiting with President Bukele, we talked about the fact that he would accept more flights, would accept more individuals into.
Oh, yes, he's willing to accept. Of course he's willing to accept. You're paying him. You're like literally paying a third world country to take people that you nabbed off the streets and deported. This is fascism, people. This is not hyperbole to say it is fascism. If it's not fascism, how is it different?
So I'm looking forward to that partnership continuing.
Secretary Kristi Noem, thank you so much for joining the program.
Yes, thank you, Lawrence.
Appreciate it.
Anyway, I need to go take a crap now. Just kidding. I just seeing Kristi Noem makes me want to go take a crap. All right. She's such an, I mean, they're just all awful, awful people. And they want to act like somehow they're the virtue of
private
humanity or
institutions
whatever.
has been an abomination.
Speaking
and someone
of
has to stand up for these Jewish
It's not going to
kids.
be the rabbi at the table. and
Someone
it's not gonna
stands
be the
up.
entire
Someone
Jewish
has to stand.
community.
Someone has
It's
to
not
stand
gonna
up
be
for
my
him.
friends in Jewish studies who had their grants canceled.
Until Donald Trump came along in his administration and decided to connect federal funds to stamping out the scourge of anti-Semitism on these campuses,
Like Nick Fuentes.
Nobody,
like the Sikh Heil
nobody was willing to
salutes.
stand up for him.
Like
And
standing
finally
up
he
for
did.
Alliance
And I
for
think the American
Deutschland.
people don't want a private university with a $53 billion endowment to get $1 while a Jewish kid is being discriminated against on campus.
I think, first of all, let me
joke.
hold on. Let me
What
just
a
say.
complete joke.
that
Why is it a
You guys
joke?
are nowhere. You have white supremacists in your party and in your administration. Oh, Nick Fuentes. Oh, whatever. It's
He's
just
not
a
in our
dinner.
administration.
Oh, Alliance for Deutschland. Oh, it's not really a Sikh Heil salute. Go to CPAC.
You sound
There's anti-Semitic
unhinged.
conspiracy
You sound
theories
crazy.
all over the
Do you,
place.
do you
I
not
sound
want? Do you
crazy.
not want these college campuses to do better? Do you condone what is
That's
happening?
what
to these
Harvard
Jewish
agreed
colleges?
to do. They already agreed.
Scott, I think the issue is not whether.
All right, so a few things. One, he's right in bringing up just the absolute ridiculous amount of actual anti-Semitism that the Republican Party is willing to tolerate. Nick Fuentes isn't part of our administration. Like, there are anti-Semites that are part of your administration that are good friends with Nick Fuentes. I mean, like that. If your whole defense on anti-Semitism is Nick Fuentes isn't part of our administration, then you've got a really shitty defense. You've got Donald Trump is happy to appear on stage with Nick Fuentes. He's never distanced him. He had Nick Fuentes over for dinner, didn't he? Do I remember that right? I think I remember that right? He had dinner in Mar-a-Lago. He didn't just like accidentally run into him in the same restaurant. He had him over for dinner. And Nick Fuentes is a self-avowed anti-Semite and Holocaust denier. And remember, I was thinking about this in 2016 when Trump was running for president the first time. Remember when he did the whole Star of David thing with Hillary Clinton on the dollar bill or whatever? And then like said it was an accident. And he actually had a lot of anti-Semitic advertisements where he'd be like, oops, or he would retweet an anti-Semite and then like, oops. Okay, so let's be clear here. Donald Trump is anti-Semitic. And there's a history there to prove it. And, you know, the whole George Soros meme is just Jews are paying for things, right? Like any conservative that you ever hear complain about anti-Semitism, take their name, Google that plus George Soros and see what comes up. Because I guarantee, like, every single Republican has complained about George Soros. Like, I've never not had it come up to where they were saying some kind of George Soros thing. George Soros is Jewish, right? And the whole, you know, globalism, Jews are taking over the world thing is just attached to George Soros. He's this guy that I don't know, like, has an apparently infinite amount of money that he pays people to take over the world. Under what end, I don't know. But, you know, it's more just, you know, anti-Semitism. It's all it is. And what they want to do is they want to conflate anti-Semitism with being Islamophobic. Like, if you're Islamophobic, then that means you're defending anti-Semitism. No, you can hate both. And what's going on, these people on college campuses were not protesting Jewishness. They were protesting Israel's war crimes against Gaza, right? Like, I can be neither a Muslim nor Jewish and recognize that that is wrong. You can be Jewish and recognize that is wrong. Like, just killing innocent children is wrong. right? You can protest that and not be an anti-Semite, but they have to use this straw man argument that if you were part of the Gaza protests, you're an anti-Semite because they are Islamophobic, and they want to turn all of that into Jared Kushner's beachfront property. Let's stop confusing those things. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobic are just two different kinds of hate. And, you know, the Republicans seem to be the masters at being able to hate everyone that is not like them. So this is not some protection of college campuses. No, this is, in a lot of ways, it's actual anti-Semitism. But we'll get in. I mean, like, who do you think is running the Harvard to them? It's all so weird and half-assed backwards and stupid and hateful that you can't even get your head wrapped around it. And you start looking for logical consistency and you can't find any because they don't have any. All that's consistent is the hatred. They hate everyone. They hate everything except for themselves. They are bitter, angry, hateful, nasty people. Okay. Where did you go, Molly? Molly, I thought I guess I didn't add this one. Oh well. Maybe it'll come up later. I had another clip. I found another clip where
Federal court. Yeah.
Molly Jong-Fast was saying the same thing that I just was, but she was saying it much more eloquently and much, much better. If you ever get it, like, if you're not following Molly, you've got to be following Molly. I love Molly.
As you pointed out, that it was a mistake. It was striking to me to see Marco Rubio in the Oval Office today defending all of this because this is a flashback from when he had written a book about his family and there was a biography written about him. Rubio's grandfather was ordered deported when he came to this country and ultimately actually was not deported. He was in the country illegally, was not deported, and was retroactively given some form of asylum, which all that is to say, he took advantage of a process that existed for him, just like many of these immigrants do. Maybe they are in the country illegally, but they go to a judge and they make their case, and that's a process. It was a process that worked for Marco Rubio's grandfather. It was a process that worked for him, and he's sitting there in the Oval Office now saying that process should not be available to everybody else.
Scott Jennings seems to hate it when other people talk at all. But, okay, I think this is like a really, really valid point, and I think it's interesting. I did not know that Marco Rubio's grandfather was an asylee. And it's something that I think has been misrepresented by a lot of conservatives, and I think it's been misrepresented on purpose. They talk about do it the right way. Come over here the right way. Okay. If you're an asylum seeker, the whole point is that you're like leaving to save your life. So being here legally is not a part of seeking asylum. In fact, if you go and you look at the actual asylum law, it says that legal status is irrelevant to whether you can be granted asylum or not. Once you request asylum, you're here legally, even if you entered illegally. And that's because of the whole point of it. Like, let's just take, let's go to Cuba, and you're fleeing Cuba because that's communist. So the Republicans are more sympathetic to that, right? If you fled Cuba and you came here and you are here legally or illegally and you requested asylum, then you got a hearing. And that's what happened with Marco Rubio's grandfather. It's like you can't, like, stay and there, go and fill out a form and mail it in and wait for a response and then, go to the embassy or whatever. The whole fact that your life is in danger means you need to flee. And so you can't sit around waiting for some kind of process to develop. The whole point of asylum is that your life is in danger. And you're saying if you get returned, then, there's a good chance you're going to get killed, which is what happened with this Garcia guy. And I would like to point out that's why a lot of people are, wondering if he's still alive at all. Because the court had determined if he got sent back to El Salvador, then he could be killed. And so now you've got all this stuff where they're like, they're doing everything they can to avoid proving he's still alive. So is it possible he's not? And there was read this article back in, I want to say around 2018, about a lot of these asylum seekers that were being denied asylum by Donald Trump and sent back. So they did some reporter had done a study and went to go. She identified 30 different asylum seekers and she went to go find where they were in their country, and like half of them were dead. So it's like, yes, people seeking asylum because of persecution, like a lot of times you don't just pick up and walk across half a continent because you want better health care or a free phone. Like, that's not reality, people. I mean, anyway, can you imagine that? Like walking across the entire subcontinent of Mexico because you're afraid of being murdered. There was like one story I heard from an immigration lawyer is and I've told this before on the show, but a mom had two sons. One of the sons was murdered for not joining the gangs. Her second son was like junior high age. And they showed up to the older son's funeral. And they sat behind them. And then they did the finger gun thing. And then they were like, pointing it at his head, the younger son's head. And explaining to her that her taxes went up, which, is money she had to pay the gang. And that, he was marked for future gang membership. And if, she didn't comply, they were both dead. So she went home after her older son's funeral, grabbed what she could, and walked across Mexico to get to America so she could seek asylum. All right. Do you think she has credible fear? Like, I think that's pretty credible. And I think we talk about asylum seekers as they're looking for a better life, as though they're just looking for like oranges or something. No, when they say they're looking for a better life, they mean like not being murdered by gang members. And so then the Trump administration accuses people of trying to escape gangs as being part of gangs. Do you see how evil and corrupt that is? Do you see how nasty and mean that is? That's like accusing Jews of being Nazis. Oh, I forgot. They do that too. So, back to George Soros. Anyway, they're really, really just mean, nasty, evil, awful people. Okay, let's go. Oh, yeah, this is
the comments of President Bukele, and I look forward to meeting with him. I've requested to meet with him. I reached out to the ambassador here to ask to meet while he's here. But I've also made clear if we can't meet here, I do intend to go to El Salvador to discuss the release of this individual who is illegally detained, a Maryland man who's the father of 3 in a notorious prison in El Salvador. And I believe the president of El Salvador will recognize why it's important to allow him to return to the United States of America, because it is absolutely unjust and illegal to have this Marylander detained one more day in a notorious prison in El Salvador. Of course, President Trump could have just said, bring him home. Of course, he could have done that. But this is an administration that has lied about Mr. Abrego Garcia, right? The vice president of the United States tweeted out that he had a criminal record. That was a lie. They're just lying. They've gotten caught lying. They don't want to admit it. And they have an obligation to bring him home. But I will say the president of El Salvador should not now take it upon himself to say that he is detaining him for one more day, because that is kidnapping. I understand that the Attorney General said that we would provide a plane to bring him home. So all the president of El Salvador has to do now is hand over and release an innocent man and let him come home to his family.
So that I forgot the name of the senator. Hang on, I'll see if I can. Senator Van Hollen. That's who that is. And he's trying to get, I imagine, I think he's probably from Maryland. And he's requesting to meet with the president of El Salvador to get Garcia released. And he's being accused of violating the Logan Act. And it's, sitting U.S. senators meet with foreign dignitaries all the time, including Republican ones. We had Republican senators and congressmen going and meeting with leaders of foreign nations while Biden was president, while Obama was president. It's just kind of bullshit to call it a violation of the Logan Act. But again, it's noticed that they always have to move the goalposts. They cannot just say, okay, either they lie or they move the goalposts. They'll lie and they'll say that he was here illegally. He was here legally. They had in 2019, an immigration judge said you cannot deport him. The only illegal thing was deporting him. He was here legally. At that point, he was here legally. Whether he crossed whether he was here legally when he crossed is irrelevant. He was here legally when they arrested him. And that's the whole thing about asylum. He was, a court said you can't deport him. So what's the point of courts if you can just do whatever you want anyway? He was here legally, 100% legally. Just like, I assume most of you are. And if you're not, I don't care. But anyway, got a guy that does work for me sometimes who's here legally. And I always joke with him, don't get deported. I need you. He does good work. Anyway, I don't evaluate the quality of a human being based on what country they were born in. But so he's saying he wants to get this guy back home and with his family. And you've got Republicans freaking out about the Logan Act as though this is some sort of foreign policy issue. Like, this is not a foreign policy issue. This is not like, it's not like our relationship with El Salvador is on the line here, or like what is the foreign policy issue? Like, they just because there's another country involved. Well, the only reason there's another country involved is because you decided to start illegally deporting people to another country. So there's no Logan Act of violation. I can't. Was it? Who was it? when Biden was president, somebody went and met with the leader of China or whatever, put the whole negotiation about Taiwan up in jeopardy. I don't remember what it was. Anyway, just see all the Logan Act nonsense. Just ignore that. That's complete crap. This is not a violation of the Logan Act. And anyway, I'm just going to move to the next thing.
It
Let's go to
was
this
a win.
awful
What the
person.
court also said was that these district judges do not have the right to interfere with the executive branch's ability to conduct foreign affairs.
Okay. What foreign affairs, Pam? This is Pam Bondi. And more defense of, and the whole Supreme Court said you have to bring him back. And the entire administration and Fox News and right-wing media has been trying to say the opposite of what that is. By equivocating, by playing with words and all of this kind of nonsense. No, but the Supreme Court was really clear. You have to bring him back. And they're defying a Supreme Court order, which means that they are fascists. They are literally saying that they do not have to listen to the courts by just restating wrongly and lying about what the court said.
Meaning President Trump's ability to do business with foreign nations, and they can't do that.
But there's no business with foreign nations here. This is not about separation of powers where the president gets to determine. Like, this is nonsense. This is nonsense.
What they also said is just facilitate, meaning if he wanted a plane flight, we could give him.
Oh, just facilitate. Like,
a plane flight, but we cannot effectuate it, meaning making it happen, which is what the.
Okay, did you try to facilitate it? You want to sit there and parse? Okay, what happened is in the district courts, they said participate and effectuate. Then the Supreme Court just said, the district court said facilitate and effectuate. The Supreme Court said just use the word effectuate, right? Or facilitate. They didn't say effectuate. Okay, so what? They didn't use both words. That doesn't mean that they're not saying you don't have to effectuate. But also, what has the Trump administration done to try to facilitate it? Where's the fucking plane? Just send them a plane. Stop paying them money to keep this guy a prisoner. Like, you're literally paying for this guy to be illegally imprisoned, and you're sitting there parsing between facilitate and effectuate. Well, facilitate it then. Stop complaining about how you don't have to effectuate it. Just facilitate it. What have you done to facilitate it? Nothing, except argue about not being able to have to effectuate it. That's like nonsense. These are nonsensical ramblings of fascist lunatics. These people are fascists. Like, I had yesterday, there was this whole thing, you know, like how they always go like, oh, you guys just say fascist every time you disagree with somebody. And it's like, oh, hi, Courtney and Julie. The whole thing is insane. Like, effectuate and facilitate, what's the difference? Like, have you facilitated? Like, make it, like, stop paying them to keep him prisoner. That's a way you could facilitate.
Ability to conduct foreign affairs, meaning President Trump's ability to do business with foreign nations, and they can't do that. What they also said is just facilitate, meaning if he wanted a plane flight, we could give him a plane flight, but we cannot effectuate it, meaning making it happen, which is what the district court had originally ruled. It was a win. It was a win today. And Jesse, you know, when you're listening to all these liberal reporters, they keep calling him a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man. He's part of a foreign terrorist organization.
He's not part of a foreign terrorist organization. He's not. Just declaring he's part of a foreign terrorist organization, like, one, you just declared that this is a terrorist organization, which it's not. That, you know, like the gang, like drug gangs are not terrorist organizations by definition. A terrorist organization is something that's trying to effectuate some kind of political change. That's not what drug, and I'm not defending them. I'm just saying that they're not a terrorist organization. Just declaring they're a terrorist organization doesn't make them terrorists. And making him a part of that terrorist organization just by declaring he's part of it also does not make him a member of the gang. So he is not a member of the gang, and the gang is not a terrorist organization. So you stating these things as unequivocal facts proven by law are just not facts, and they haven't been proven by law. And the whole point of everything is you need to prove these things. That's what it means to live in a free society. That's what, like, this is why you're a fascist, Pam. Is you are saying that if the government declares you are a terrorist and you can be deported to a foreign country, then you're a terrorist and you can be deported to a foreign country.
He's a member of MS-13.
He is not a member of MS-13. He was fleeing MS-13. He doesn't want to be murdered by MS-13. Again, this is like declaring that Nazis or that Jews are Nazis. But again, you do that too. You do that too. All right, next clip. Okay.
Two weeks ago, we had a horrendous ice storm in northern Michigan. If you get a 1/4 inch of ice, it is a catastrophe. We had 1.5 inches of ice in some places. Like, it snapped utility poles in half. 3,500 utility poles snapped in half. You and I are talking, it's about 15 days since the first ice storm happened, and then like 4 days into it, another one came through. 15 days in, we still have 5,500 people that don't have power. I mean, that's how serious it is and how scary. And so, you know, I went up and toured the area, and I decided just, you know, last week I called the president and said, I'm going to need some help, and I want to come in and tell you about this. By the way, I also wanted to talk about tariffs and Air National Guard base, but he said, okay, come on over. So I went to D.C. this past week to go meet with the president about this, and they brought me in, not into a meeting, a one-on-one meeting, which is what I thought I was going for, but into a press conference that was about a bunch of stuff that I don't agree with. And I was kind of, what do? Do you make a scene? Well, that doesn't help the people of Michigan. Do you walk out? That doesn't help the people of Michigan. So I stood there. I walked out briefly to talk to my staff person and walked back in, and then had my meeting. But I've gotten a lot of heat for it. But I had to ask for help for the people of Michigan. And public service, the way I was taught public service from both my parents is you take an oath to put the people's interests above your own. And so while maybe I'm going to pay a price for that, I was doing the right thing for Michigan.
And this is something I wanted to point out. You know, like some people that are on the left, and most of my criticism here is for people on the right, on this podcast. But here I want to criticize some people on the left that are overly critical of anyone on the left that is considered to be obeying in advance or whatever. Like, you can go too far with that. And you have a governor here of a state that has constituents that don't have power, right? And needs federal relief. She's not going to get that from the Tooth Fairy. And there's only one president, whether you like him or not. There's only one president. There's only one federal government we have. And yes, it's controlled by Republicans. And yes, she's a Democrat. But it's not like she went out there and endorsed him or said wonderful things about him. She just tried to get help for her constituents. And I think some people need to back off, take your foot off the accelerator. I get you're angry. I'm angry. If you're watching this podcast, it should be pretty obvious I'm angry with the Trump administration. But there are realities involved, right? You've got Democratic governors that are good governors, like Beshear in Kentucky, Whitmer in Michigan. Until recently, I was a fan of Newsom, but his anti-trans comments kind of pissed me off. But anyway, we need to reserve our criticism for things that are actually wrong. And her trying to get help from the federal government for her people that didn't have power is not something wrong. So actually think about it. Would you be mad? Is she endorsing Trump? No. And it's not her fault that he used it as a means for he turned what was supposed to be a private meeting into a press conference. That's not on her. She didn't even know. Save your anger for the people who deserve it. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay.
Do you think that your members are going to feel that they'll vote for it if it's not a higher tax rate for the rich?
Yeah, I don't think that would go very far. That would absolutely throw a monkey wrench into the system. There's a lot of individuals. Look, the top 1% are right now paying 40% of the share of America's taxes, and yet they're not getting.
Okay, first of all, the top 1% control over 50% of the nation's wealth. Number one. So they're paying 40% of the taxes is actually means they're not even paying their fair share. But secondly, the idea that they aren't benefiting more. Oh, well,
tremendously more from their money. It's not.
But they are benefiting tremendously more from their money. Let me put it this way. Let's say, and we're just going to use something like public education, which they hate anyway, right? But most of us have learned to read and write, and most of us did it in public schools, right? You went to school where you learned to read, write, do arithmetic, learn basic biology or whatever. You learn things that you then use in employment, right? You don't go like the rich person that owns this business does not have to teach people how to read and write. He doesn't have to build his own roads to get to whatever business he is, right? Like there are things involved that are public service. I don't care what your business is. And the government pays for those things. Even like you have a fire department, you have a police department. If my house burns down, my house doesn't cost as much money as Elon Musk's, right? So he benefits more from the fire department than I do. My house is not as much at risk as Elon Musk. So he benefits more from the police department than I do. Like it's you can say that they don't benefit more, but they do benefit more. They benefit more because they're higher profile, they have more money, they're higher risk, all of those things, right? Like if there were no police department, do you think that the poor people are going to go after the poor people first or the rich people first? And who do you think the police department spends more time and money in protecting? Who do you think? Do you think that if I got torched on social media, entire police departments would be camping out at my place of business to protect my place of business? You had hundreds of police across the nation protecting Tesla lots because of Elon Musk. Don't tell me he does not benefit more. And that's not even getting into the billions of dollars that the federal government is giving him. The idea that progressive taxation is wrong is ridiculous. Yes, you benefit. The more money you make, the more you benefit from your taxes. So yes, it is entirely moral for you to have to pay higher taxes.
Like the top 1% get to have that much more libraries or schools or roads.
No, they don't get more libraries. You didn't get a library, but you benefited from the library. You benefited more from the library. You benefited more from the roads. You benefit from, like, I don't get benefit from anybody else driving on the road other than me. But if you own a business and you have 100 people driving to your business, you benefit more from the road than I do, or than any one of them, because you're making money off of each one of them.
They're really footing the bill for most Americans. I think that
they pay 40% and they're footing the bill for most Americans. What about the other 60%? Like, this is just such hogwash.
If we increase those taxes, we've seen from history, when they did have higher taxes, it really had a very negative impact on.
No, actually, we don't see that. And if you read history, you would know that. Actually, what we see is every time, okay, when taxes were at the highest, when the taxes on the wealthy were the highest, we were actually, like, we were going gangbusters. That was like what most conservatives consider the ideal time in America. That our economy was robust, it was growing, it was doing fantastic. And then we started cutting taxes, and we were paying our bills. Did you know that when Jimmy Carter left office, the national debt was $600 billion? The national debt, not the deficit, the debt. We owed $600 billion. Ronald Reagan more than quadrupled that. And now we're at like $30 trillion or 30, you know. But if you go back and you look at since 1980, there have been like some explosions of the deficit. And those explosions of the deficit always came under Republican presidents. They always came after massive tax cuts. There was Reagan's tax cuts, which resulted in an explosion in the deficit. There was Bush II's tax cut, which resulted in an explosion in the deficit. And there were Trump's tax cuts, which resulted in an explosion in the deficit. So now we just keep like adding trillions of dollars to the deficit. And this clown wants to pretend like the reason that we, you know, like that it's always negative results. You know what? And here's the thing. They want to talk about trickle down economics, right? That if you give rich people enough money, then that money will trickle down to poor people, which is just dumb. All right. Money does not trickle down, it trickles up. If I buy a hamburger from McDonald's, then the owner of McDonald's gets a percentage of that, right? And everybody that buys a hamburger from McDonald's, the owners of McDonald's, the corporation, and I think there was, I don't know if there still is, but anyway, you get my point. The people that work there, they get their pay, but there's a certain amount of that money, like whether it's 1 or 2 cents for that Big Mac or whatever, that every single time I go to McDonald's and I buy a hamburger or whatever, there's like a certain amount of that money goes up to the rich people. And it trickles up. And they on the other hand, like Elon Musk, for instance, who has like $500 billion now, they don't have to spend their money. They can just save it or invest it or whatever. And so it doesn't trickle. It just keeps going up to them. Why do you think that the wealth of the wealthiest people keeps growing and the wealth gap keeps growing also? Like the amount of money between what the middle class makes and the wealthiest Americans make now is like, I can't remember, but it's like exploded since we started cutting taxes. Exploded. And they want to make it sound like what we want to do, like the left, they'll always talk about, oh, well, you guys are against rich people. I'm not against rich people. I don't have any problem at all with rich people. I wish I was a rich person. Like being rich would be cool. But I wouldn't bitch about paying taxes if I were rich. We're not anti-rich. What we are is anti-grotesque wealth. Like there's a difference between just being rich because you worked hard and did things right and being obscenely wealthy to the point where you have $500 billion. You're worth more than some nations. And you're not even paying taxes. Like there's a difference there. Okay, hang on a second. Greg says something. For every dollar in tax cuts given out, less than 80 cents is generated in economic activity. It might be lower than 70 cents. Great stat, Greg. And then for every dollar spent by the government, somewhere between $2 and $3 in economic activity is generated. Fantastic. I'm glad you said it because I was about to follow up what you said with what you said. Like, because of what I was so let's say and with this, it's the less money that somebody makes that got that federal spending, the more activity it generates. So like if some because you're more likely to spend money and it's more likely to be respent. So let's say that you have, you give this poverty family $1, right? And then they go and they spend that $1. They're going to spend it at the dollar store. And then the person at the dollar store, they help have a job because that poor person is able to spend $1. Because they have a job, they have a paycheck. And so because they have a paycheck, they can go spend money. And so on and so forth. And I think if I remember correctly, welfare, like money spent on welfare, which we don't, it's not called welfare anymore, but like food stamps or whatever. The return on that money is like 7 to 1. The less money you make, the more value government spending has, if that makes sense. So, like, let's just stop with this, oh, poor 1% being treated unfairly nonsense. I mean, imagine like feeling for that.
Is also clear is that Trump has no economic.
Okay, this is an economist, Nobel economist, talking about Trump's tax cuts. This is fantastic.
Theory behind what he's doing.
All right.
And I think that's
not his tax cuts, his tariffs.
Most disturbing, both to me as an economist and to those who are on the other side of negotiations. I've talked to some of these people and they say, we don't know how to negotiate because the other side is not a normal negotiator. Normally the other side knows what they want. There's a theory about how trade works. That's not true here. It's a different world. So let me give you an example. Trump thinks that trade deficits by themselves, and in particular trade deficits in goods, reflect somebody treating us unfairly. And it's based sort of on a premise that we are better than any other country, so people should be buying more goods from us than we are buying from them. But we are in the 21st century, not where we were in 1950. Services are the major part of our economy. Goods production, manufacturing is 9–10%. What are important? Service sector, tourism, education, health. What is he doing to those sectors? Look what he's done in the last few weeks. He's devastated our education system. The way his immigration people have treated those wanting to come into our country with valid passports, visas, has discouraged tourism. So he is hell-bent at hurting America's major export industry, tourism, and education. I've talked to firms that have thought about bringing manufacturing back to the United States. They say we don't have the logistics, we don't have the supply chains that you need to bring complex manufacturing back. And modern manufacturing is robotic. So even if we brought manufacturing back, there are not going to be many jobs. So the reality is that his picture of bringing us back to the 1950s, that's never going to happen. But what's going to happen in the meanwhile? We're not going to be able to get those goods that Americans want.
I feel for this guy because, you know, like, you ever, just, what do you know, I just think about what you do for a living, or something that you like really actually know a lot about. Have you ever known something about something and then had somebody that knows nothing about it try to argue with you? Like, here's a story. When I was, oh gosh, in my early 20s, for a while, I was working at IBM, and we had these, we would test hard drives, right? Like, to make sure that they were good to go in computers. And it was like a third shift job. And there was this one guy that I called him Reader's Digest, because one night he spent the entire night arguing with somebody about something to do with psychology. She had a master's degree in psychiatry, and he had read a Reader's Digest article and apparently even misunderstood the article that he read. And so he was spending the entire argument, or the entire night, arguing with her about something like really basic. And she had a master's degree, right? Like, he could not listen to her. And there's a mansplaining element in this involved too. But just the whole ignorance splaining. Actually, that's a good word. I should use that more. Ignorance splaining. That's what a lot of MAGAs do. They don't know what they're talking about, but they'll still explain to you their nonsensical ramblings. So connected to this guy that, you know, like, he's actually won a Nobel Prize in economics, trying to elucidate Trump's tariff policy is just, I actually feel for the guy. Like, you've got to explain to people that why circles are round, or why squares have right angles. Like, this is not complicated. And, you know, like, trade deficits are not like win-lose propositions. I have a trade deficit with Walmart. I have a trade deficit with HEB because I buy stuff from them, but they never buy stuff from me. And the other part of that is, and this is, you know, like, you hear people saying that, you know, like, but, you know, and you're like, you know, is that really a fair comparison? Because it is. And the reason is, when we buy stuff from another country, when an export company buys stuff from another country, that stuff comes in. That stuff comes in, right? We are not just giving them money. We are buying things. And then you say, well, but what about wealth transfer? And, you know, like, that's, you know, usually when resources come in, then that means that the wealth transfer is going the other direction. So, like, when we're buying minerals or whatever, then, you know, like, anyway, the whole notion that spending money in Madagascar to bring stuff into the country is like bad for the U.S. economy is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous as trying to argue that circles have right angles. And I'm not even an economist, and I know that, right? But imagine being an actual Nobel-winning economist and having to explain to people that there is not a trade deficit between you and Walmart or whatever, right? Like, no way. It's so insane. It's so like, but it's not just that. And he brought up a really interesting point. Other countries don't know how to negotiate. They keep talking about negotiating, and it's like, negotiate what? If you've ever talked to a right winger about the economics of oil or climate science, you'll see the most arrogant wrongness you'll ever see. It's like world champion obdurate nonsense. Anyway, probably for another show, I need, like, the right wing media has indoctrinated them so much that they have no idea what they're talking about, and they are so far outside of reality that they don't recognize reality anymore. Like, yeah, we're just sitting there hallucinating the number of, once in a century. When you start having like 9 or 10 once in a century storms every year, you got to start thinking the climate might be changing. And the 98% of climate scientists who say it's because of like man-made things, then maybe you should listen to them. Like, anyway, back to the tariffs. Imagine you're trying to negotiate this this agreement with the United States when the president has no idea what he's talking about. Like, what do you do? Like, and this is something we're not really discussing, is like, when they talk about, oh, we're going to negotiate for a better deal. What deal? What is the outcome? What is the optimum outcome? Let's say we go ahead 5 years from now and we're looking at, everything worked out perfectly. What does it look like now? Because I have yet to hear a single thing, a single distinction, a single actual parameter that we're reaching for. Like, what are we doing? Why? What are we trying to get out of this? Because if we're just trying to get like to no trade deficits with any country, that does not help our country. And actually, reducing imports can hurt us. Wharton did a study that said that, I think it's Trump's tariffs, like, this is all supposed to be for better living for American people, right? I think it was Wharton that did a study that was saying that 7%, or that American wages are expected to be reduced by 7%. You're going to make less money because of these tariffs. And that's because the reduction in imports will affect our trade, and will affect our not just our external trade, but also internal trade, right? We're not able to import everything, right? And so then that's going to mean less jobs. That's going to mean lower incomes. Like, it's time to wake up and realize that the man in charge is a demented idiot. Like, he really has no idea. And I just feel bad for this Nobel laureate that knows actually things about the economy, having to justify himself to a guy who paid somebody to go to Wharton for him. Okay, and ooh.
believe that that Putin is controlling Trump in some weird conspiracy way. But if I were Putin and I were controlling Trump, it's hard to find something that he's done that I wouldn't support, right? I would want to alienate our allies. I would want to devastate our position as kind of economic dominance. I would want to weaken the U.S. bond market. I would want to ensure that our allies can't rely on us, including cutting off USAID and all of the other ways in which soft power used to be exercised. So again, I'm not alleging a conspiracy, but it's quite a confluence of interests between the dictator of Russia and the dictator here.
He's also, I mean, the Bukele visit today was so.
Is there anything he said that's wrong? Like that I actually would like to offer that message to as a challenge to any MAGAs that will listen to this clip. Name one thing that Trump is doing differently than Putin would want him to do. Name one thing. Because everything he's doing with the immigration thing is just trying to destabilize. It does destabilize America. Like whether he's trying to or not, it does, right? He's trying to undermine, like he's undermining democracy by both his attacks about 2020 election and everything he's doing since then. And, you know, name one thing he does that is not what Putin would want him to do. If you just name one, other than like, I don't know, maybe Putin doesn't like ketchup on his hamburgers or on his steaks. I imagine Putin has better taste than that. But as president, name one thing that Trump has done or is doing that is not what Putin would want him to do. Because I think that's actually, I think that's a really good way to articulate it. Because it doesn't matter if he's an asset, if he's doing everything an asset would do. So you don't have to get into this meandering road of whether or not he's actually an asset. Well, what's the difference? If he's acting like an asset, who cares whether he's an asset or not? I mean, he's an ass hat either way, but whether he's an asset or not is irrelevant. Yeah, tanking oil prices, but that's completely by accident. Yeah, that's kind of the side effect of the tariffs, when the tariffs benefit Putin anyway. So anyway, I think that's it for today's show. I'm out of clips. I just want to thank you again if you've been watching and been encouraging me, and you know, especially like Greg, you know, you've been a regular viewer. I just getting over the 4,000 hours is a huge thing for me, and like literally I know how I'm going to survive going forward. So thanks again. Love you guys, and I'll see you around here tomorrow.